So I'm well known for painting very round, fluffy sheep. Sometimes they are very textured and I show the fleece, and other times they're quite sort of smooth coated. I like to paint them either looking at one another, looking at the grass or the sky, or munching on some grass. Lots of different positions. So the one behind me is quite fun because you've got 3 sheep stacked on top of each other, and the little lamb is leaning across trying to put the star on top of the tree. But the 2 underneath, you've got one with its legs straight down, looking straight at you. Another one, legs over the top of it, looking straight at you. But then this shows the side profile of the sheep. Here we're going to try something like this today, where the sheep are looking at one another, a little smile on the face. This is how I would draw one of my little round cuddly sheep. So I'm going to start with the shape of the sheep as an oval sort of a shape. Choose quite a light colour to set your shape in place, because the top of the sheep is going to be much lighter than the base of the sheep. So you want to make sure that you haven't drawn a dark line over the top that you can't remove. So we're going to start with darker colour for the shadow and keep the top light. I've got quite a lot of pastels to choose from. If you haven't got a lot of colours, just have a white top on the sheep, but only the very top layer. So mine is going to cover that light colour, like so. So that's my light highlight on the top there. And I'm going to go straight in with the dark at the bottom. So I'm going to pick a really dark colour. Now it does seem like it's very dark when it goes on, but we are going to blend this. So we're going to put a nice dark colour. Now the reason I work on an easel with my paper like so, at this angle, is basically so that the pastel just drops straight underneath, because if I'm working flat, which I know many of you will do, you will find that you end up with quite a lot of pastel dust around you. Of course, if you're working with paints, it doesn't matter. So we're going to put mid-tone through there. It does look rather odd at the moment, I know, but we are going to get our fingers in there and start blending in a minute. So I'm just going to use 3 or 4 colours to represent probably what you've got access to. Okay, so now we're going to blend the base of the sheep with our fingers and really work it into your paper. Don't be afraid to press hard. And now work that into the next colour, next band of colour. I like to blend with my thumb in circular motions just to work the colour in. But basically, just do it whatever feels comfortable to you. So if you've been blending the darker colour at the bottom, you're going to end up with darker colour on your fingers, so just give your hands a quick little wipe before you go touching the lighter colour on the top, otherwise you're going to have big dark fingerprints in the top there. So don't worry if you go over one of the edges, you can just take a rubber, clean that up. So I've blended now the dark to the light, and what I'm going to do next is just take the lighter colour and just very gently just work that over the top of the dark. And what I will get by doing that is the texture of the paper underneath. And that's giving my sheep a little bit of texture on its coat, so it's not entirely smooth. And don't worry if you haven't got paper that's textured. You can always dab it on or work it into a pattern with your fingers, anything that's going to create a little bit of texture. But I'm just lightly going over the darker colour here to give it a bit of texture. And just knock that one back a little bit. There. So that's taken away some of the darkness, some of the shadow on that sheep. And we'll work that up a little bit higher. And we're going to get a really light colour pastel here and just continue doing what I was doing a minute ago, which is just lightly touch the paper, so it's bringing some of that texture of the paper through. So you can layer pastels up like this. You can blend them, but then you can layer them up a little bit more. So you might be able to see some of that lighter colour just coming down into the rest of the sheep there. Okay, so at this moment in time, we've just got what looks like a bit of an egg on the page, so we need to turn this into a sheep. So we're going to do that by popping a head on it now. Our sheep is going to look this way, so we're going to put the shape of the head in about here. I'm just using a brush to sort of gently show where that head shape could just sit. So it's kind of like a little bit of another oval sitting on there, but just pointed slightly that way. We could sit it looking up there and point the face that way, or it could be down. I think for this, I'll just have it looking straight over that way. So I'm going to just take an eraser and just take a little bit of that pastel off that side of the sheep there. I'm going to start with a light colour to put the shape of the head in, because if we go in with the black straight away and we make a mistake, it's going to be really hard to take the black off the paper. So I'm just going to go with a light grey to begin with. Just gently just put the shape of that sheep's head in. I'm going to leave a little bit just here for the white nose of the Swaledale sheep. So this is going to be a Swaledale sheep, and I'm just going to pop in the black now for the head. And just leave a little bit at the front there for the nose. Okay, quite happy with that. So again, I'm going to take my finger and blend this just to work that pastel into the paper. You can see all the little bits of pastel dropping. And I'm quite lucky because it's flat on an easel, so it's not touching the paper so much, it's going straight down underneath. Okay, so we've blended the head. Now we need to think about where the ears would be, where the eye would sit, and then we need to just sort the front of the face out there, pop a little nose and a smile on it. So we could probably just pop the black pastel straight over the top. That ear is going to sit about there. So I'm just very lightly putting that in like so, but really I think the black would go over the top. So it was just for a placeholder, just to give me an idea where it's going to be. So I've popped that ear in. I'm going to shade it underneath solid black. I don't want the top to be solid black. I'm going to blend it in, but I'm actually going to pop a little highlight on the top of that, because just in the same way that the sheep has light hitting it from the top, casting shadow underneath, the same is going to happen with the head. So I'm going to take a lighter grey, not much left of this pastel, and I'm just going to go over the top of the head of the sheep very lightly, and it's because that's given it nice texture like so. And just on here on the ear, I'm just going to give it a nice little highlight there, which is just going to make that ear stand forward, and then can just blend it ever so slightly just so it doesn't look too stuck on. Okay, with the same grey, I'm just going to pop a little bit underneath the bottom of the front of this face. And then I'm just going to blend into the edge there, so we haven't got a really hard line. So you can see that I'm using my knuckles. I like to work with my knuckles. Don't ask why. So I'm just going to use my knuckles. It's just easy. It's just because my knuckles are much smaller than my fingers, so I tend to use my knuckles just to get those smaller spaces blended. Okay, so we've got like a softer grey muzzle on the sheep, if you like so. We can pop a little bit more white on just to add that highlight back in there. Okay, so that's blending nicely now. We're about ready to put the eye and a nice little smile on the face of the sheep too. So the eye is going to sit just next to the ear, about there. Oh, I've just transferred a little mark with my nail, but that's just perfectly placed. So that's where I would pop the eye of the sheep. And then get your black pastel again. Sometimes I need to snap the pastels, break a little bit off to create a harder edge to them, just to get that nice little clean line. All we need to do now is pop a little shadow under here so that the head doesn't look like it's just been superimposed onto the body. So we just need a little darker colour underneath. And then we can pop the legs in. So just underneath where the head joins the body, pop a little bit of a shadow there. And then blend it in, and that's just going to make it look like it's actually sat on the body. There we go. And we're ready to put the legs in. So now we're going to put the legs in. If you think this is now a three-dimensional object, so this side, the legs will be closer to you. On the other side of the body, the legs are going to be further away. So when you pop the legs in, the ones at the front need to be longer than the ones on the other side of the sheep. So let's have that one about there, that one about there, and the ones at the back want to be a little bit thinner and a little bit shorter, like so. And that'll give the impression that these legs are further forward than the ones behind. So with my legs on my sheep, I like to do nice big feet. So just a little curve on the front like that. And we've got there we go, nice big leg there. And a smaller version needs to be made behind it, so smaller foot. Like so. And the final thing will be just to add the tail on the end, just nice and simple. Blend it in at the top, so you can see that it actually is there. And if you want to make your sheep look like it's standing on the ground, you can just pop, or in the grass, just pop a little bit of green underneath. Here we go. And that basically is my sheep.